I am back. Right. I really didn't want to come back to study. I was actually planning to just watch Sailor Moon for the rest of the evening. You know, I've never actually watched Sailor Moon all the way through, like ever. I just watched sporadic episodes when I was a kid. So I'm trying to watch it all the way through, but there's like 92 episodes per season. I'm barely halfway through the first. But yeah, I had actually forgotten that I signed up to volunteer to create some greeting cards for seniors. And these are two that I was able to do in 1 hour. They're actually kind of cute. I'm hoping you can see them. Well, you can. You are a blessing. Yes, you. I feel like I decided to take the approach of all of my grandparents are dead. And, you know, if I still had a grandparent, I would want them, you know, to get a letter. And so I kind of wrote this as if they were my grandparents, and I wrote, from a grandchild to a grandparent, thank you for brightening this world with your smile and warm hugs. Take extra good care. And yeah, I hope that one makes him smile. If it doesn't, it's okay. And then for this one, I got kind of like, I don't know, I wanted to draw something pretty. It's not the best drawing in the world, but when I was drawing it, it kind of reminded me of going up to Big Bear. I'm from Southern California. Going up to Big Bear Mountain, and it's crazy how the foliage changes. And so I drew this. Climbing a mountain is a challenge, but the views are incredible. People, when they're like older, you know, sometimes they how do I say it? They have a lot of challenges that they face on a daily basis. You know, some of them might be going through pain, whether it's emotional or physical, and so I'm hoping that's kind of uplifting, you know. And then it's kind of a little more frilly inside, but I wrote, although I've been busy working on my school stuff, you know, they can imagine I'm like their grandkid. I wanted to say I've been, oh crap, thinking of you, sending you hugs and love. And yeah, so I only did 2. If I have some more time later, I'll probably do a couple more, and then I'm gonna mail them out to a volunteer center that apparently coordinates them. And actually have to put them in envelopes, which I had no idea. This was actually really fun. So I enjoyed, you know, getting little arts and crafty. Pulled out my glue sticks. I haven't used a glue stick in a while. But anyway, I have to study. I don't want to, but I have to. There's literally no one watching this right now, but that's okay. Whoever watches this later, I hope I made you smile. Or at least think that I'm ridiculous. Alright, so getting into it, let me skip this song. It doesn't really relax me. So yeah, those little story. So I think what I said when I ended last stream was that I was gonna do my video for my video class, and I didn't work on it because I didn't have time. Like, I almost didn't have time to eat dinner, but I made sure I gave myself some time to eat dinner while I watched some Sailor Moon. No, apparently my lecture for tomorrow for my honors class got canceled, so I have an extra 3 hours to work on that video. I don't think it's gonna take that long, so yeah, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. So I am just gonna focus on brain and behavior. So let's get to it. Bam. Gotta hype myself up. Okay, I'm gonna shut up now. La, 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 la. What was I doing? Oh, that's right. Okay, I have to remind myself of what I've done. I finished by... I was doing my active recall questions. Okay. Also, I'll probably only stream for maybe 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half. Keeping it short this time because I'm tired. Okay. I think that's the most I've ever talked. Wow. You guys were only, well, East Coast? East Coast is 3 hours ahead. Literally 1 hour away from the day of Joe Biden's inauguration. Isn't that beautiful? I think that's beautiful. We're almost there. I am concerned though. Like, what if some crazy shit happens tomorrow and it's horrible and people get hurt? I don't want people to get hurt. But I'm also happy about Joe Biden becoming president. Like, yes. Yes, King. Yes. Anyway. Okay. Come on. Trying to get into the mood. Because I'm not in the mood. Oh, that's right. I'll save that for tomorrow. I'm supposed to work on my stats homework, but that's not due till Friday, so I've got plenty of time. I think I'll work on it tomorrow. I still don't know how to share stuff from here to So we're going to study neurons and resting action potential. I got halfway through it, and then I quit because I was tired, and I knew nothing. Alright, terminology, groups of neurons. Ganglia! Was it ganglia? I'm pretty sure it was ganglia. Okay, I'm going to try. What are the plural terms in the CNS for cell bodies and axons? What are the plural terms? Okay, no, one at a time. What are the plural terms in the CNS for cell bodies and axons? For cell bodies, they are called tracks. So bundle of tracks, cell bodies. For some reason, I don't know why, but cell bodies. Plural form in the central nervous system, they're called tracks. And then for the plural term for axons is I can't remember if that was no, it's PNS. For axons, it's nerves. For CNS, it's am I being too loud? I'm so sorry. For axons, it's tracks and white matter. Bundles of axons is white matter. I believe that's what that is. Let's see. Pretty sure. Oh no, I got it wrong. Cell bodies are nuclei. Because there's a nucleus in a cell body. So nuclei. Okay. Bundles of axons are called tracks or white matter. Bundles of axons are called tracks or white matter. I was close. I'm gonna give myself yellow because I got part of it right. And then what are the plural forms in the CNS for cell bodies and axons? For cell bodies, it is called ganglia, and then for the axons, it is called nerves. Watch me get this right. Yes, ganglia, bundle of axons are called nerves or white matter. This is the same thing, or white matter. Yeah. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna give myself a yellow because I wasn't sure, but I got it right. Where can nerves be found in the nervous system? I think last time I said the whole body. Where can nerves be found in the nervous system? They can be found in the spinal cord, the brain, or the peripheral. Watch me get this wrong. I got it wrong. Sensory, motor. They carry things in and out of the nervous system. Sensory, motor, sensory, motor. The sensory. Okay, so I guess nervous system. When I imagine what that is, I imagine that one image in the textbook where it's like the whole body, and then it looks like there's like a bunch of branches like all throughout the body. And that's what I imagine when I imagine the nervous system. So if we're thinking about the nervous system is our nerves, and our nerves react to everything that touches us. And then we also trigger our nerves to react to, I don't know, motor, nervous, nerves, motor. Motor is movement. Motor has to do with me moving my arms. Sensory. Sensory is when we feel stuff. Optics. Sensory is our senses. Motor is movement. And then I guess sensory and motor is a combination of both. I don't know. I will learn about that later when we go over neuroanatomy. But yeah, okay. I still didn't know the answer to this one, so that's still red. Wow, that's horrible. Okay. Blood-brain barrier. What is the main job of blood-brain barrier? Choo. What is the main job of the blood-brain barrier? To keep things out and keep things in. That is the main job. Okay, so I need to make sure I say it from the brain. But definitely to keep things out what is the difference? Okay, what is the difference? What is different about the blood-brain barrier and other membranes? The blood-brain barrier's structure involves really tightly packed junctions, whereas other membranes, the junctions are a little bit more loose and allow other stuff in. Also, yep, got that accurately. I didn't say it like I was supposed to, but I got it right. Okay, why is the blood-brain barrier so important? The blood-brain barrier is so important because if stuff gets through that barrier and compromises the neurons in our brain, what's called, if we don't get those neurons back, what's it called, they'll die, and they don't continue to divide as adults. Unlike other membranes in the body, if some body cells or red blood cells, if those get injured or if they're compromised and they die, that's okay because they can be replaced. The body will make more of them. The body doesn't make more of our neurons, so it's important to protect those spaces. I think that's why. Yeah. Neurons do not regenerate or continue to divide in adulthood. Yes. Right, so it's an orange. I'm going to make it yellow, just so I can keep coming back to it. What can get through the blood-brain barrier? Okay, what can get through? I think it wasn't inorganic, it was carbon dioxide and oxygen for sure. Those could just float right in. What was it? I don't remember. Okay, I know two. What can get through the blood-brain barrier? Oxygen, carbon dioxide. Oh, fats. Fats can get in. Okay. Glucose. That's right. Because it's the main source of energy for the brain. Okay, glucose. Amino acids. OMG. Okay, wait. So it's glucose, amino acids, acetylcholine, obviously oxygen and carbon dioxide, fats. I think that was it. Oh, never mind. Never mind. Oh, that's through the active transport. I'm like half right. So I said oxygen, carbon dioxide, and just uncharged molecules. I didn't say that. Water crosses through as well. I didn't say that. And then I said fats, molecules that dissolve in the fats of the membrane. Okay, so I'm gonna give myself an orange for that one. And let's go through it. So. Okay, so this is the blood-brain barrier. What can get through? We have glucose wasn't even in there. I think that's with active transport. This is stuff that can just get through. We have uncharged molecules, i.e. oxygen, carbon dioxide. Uncharged molecules.
oxygen, carbon dioxide. And then we have water. And then we have molecules that fuse with fats. Vitamin A, vitamin D, right? Vitamin A and vitamin D. Molecules that dissolve with fats or diffuse with fats, dissolve in fats. Vitamin A, D, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. No, just 3. Yes. Okay, good. Water. Okay. I think I can remember that. What can get through the blood-brain barrier? We have uncharged molecules such as oxygen, carbon dioxide. We have molecules that dissolve in fats such as vitamin D and vitamin A. And then we have, what is this? Water dissolves through some of the membranes. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Why are these difficulties so important? I feel like we answered this already. Why are these difficulties so important? What did we talk about this? Oh. Why are these difficulties so important for medicine? So that's a whole different story. So this has to do with medicine that needs to work in the brain. Like for instance, when treating depression, medications may work properly in the lab, like the chemicals might interact well with once it's already inside the brain, but before it even gets inside the brain, it needs to get through that blood-brain barrier. And if it can't get through that barrier, then it can't get inside the brain. So a lot of medicines will actually be, will try to bind their properties with fats so that they can get through the blood-brain barrier. Yeah, drugs usually need to be more fat soluble to use the transport systems in place. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna give myself a yellow on that one just because I knew what it was. The question was just confusing. How does the active transport help other essential brain chemicals cross? I think this question should be, what are the other essential brain chemicals that use the active transport? That's going to be your amino acids, acetylcholine, glucose, energy of the brain, and then I forgot what the other 3 are. Maybe that's it. Choline. And then I forget what the other ones are. I got the majority of them right though. Purines. I studied this yesterday. There's 7 of them. There's 7. 7. Yeah. So glucose, amino acids, choline, purines. I learned about purines. A few vitamins, certain hormones, iron. Okay. I'm gonna give myself an orange because I didn't know that 100%. Damn, I'm already tired again. Oh, hi. I wish it gave me alerts when people join in, but I still haven't been able to find that feature. So I don't always know when people join in. But yeah. Membrane potential of cells. What are the properties of membrane potential? Oh, remember we went through this? I answered it and then it was empty and I was sad. So I was just like, well, then how do I know I got the answer right? What are the properties of membrane potential? So membrane potential is polarized, meaning that it is, how do I say that? Negative with respect to the outside. Yeah. So it's polarized. It's more negative inside than it is outside. So it's polarized. What else? It is at rest. Concentrations of potassium inside are higher than the concentrations of potassium outside. There is a higher concentration of sodium on the outside as compared to the inside. There are also various proteins with negative electrical charges inside the membrane. And the membrane is kept in a sort of equilibrium through the sodium-potassium pump. Watch that not be the answer. Cells are polarized. They are more negative on the inside than on the outside of the cell. Alright, I definitely got that one correct. I'm going to give myself a yellow so I can remember it for next time. What is the difference between a membrane at rest versus in action? Membrane at rest remains polarized, and therefore there is no current, there's no message being sent out. Versus a membrane that is in action results in action potential. That means that the membrane is depolarized, so the polarization gets closer to 0. So from a negative 65, it gets closer to 0 to reach a certain amount of threshold to activate an action potential. Yep, resin potential is a subcategory of membrane potential. Describes potential at rest. Action potential is when potential action or change through the cell. So I kind of got that right. I talked a little too much, but it's all good. Good job. What is the refractory period? So refractory period is a period of time after an action potential has taken place where the cell membrane attempts to depolarize to get back to a polarized state, and in this refractory period they may also reach a hyperpolarization stage, which means that the polarization of the cell is even lower than okay, so that wasn't the answer. It says refers to the time duration when various things can or cannot happen. Sure. I'll give myself an orange because I didn't say that, but my answer is still correct. What is the difference between the relative refractory period and the absolute refractory period? This question is going to come up again. The difference between relative refractory period and absolute refractory period. A student in class gave an analogy for that, and basically the relative refractory period is it's kind of like when you're flushing a toilet. Sometimes when you flush a toilet, unless you have like the super fancy one where like you flush it and then it goes, some toilets aren't like that, okay? Some of them you have to hold it and it takes its time and then it lets the water go. So relative refractory is like when you don't hold the switch, the thingy, when you don't hold it long enough. And so some of the water's leaving, but not all of the water's leaving right away. So it's kind of open, but it's not completely closed either. Whereas absolute refractory period is literally like the flushing of the toilet, like it's gone. So it stops completely. That's what I remember. Okay, so that's not really what they said, but okay, good analogy for remembering the absolute refractory period and the relative refractory period is sort of like flushing a toilet. If you flush a toilet, it's almost impossible to flush it again. Absolute refractory. But if you wait some time, you can flush it again, but it will be weaker. Relative refractory. I mean, my answer is kind of right. So basically what they're saying, so you flush it once and the water just goes, but you can't like push the switch again and it'll flush again. You have to wait a little bit for water to flow back into the tank, and then you can try and flush it again, but it's not gonna flush away as strong. It's gonna flush like really weakly. So that's relative refractory period. I kind of have a general understanding of it, and that's all I need. So we're gonna make this yellow as well. Okay, not too bad. Maybe I could change this to okay. How is membrane potential set up at least? Okay. Now we're getting into some questions of the membrane potential. Literally so tired. It's only been 30 minutes. Okay. What is the difference between the concentration gradient and the electrical gradient? I think I might end it even earlier. I'm tired. Okay, concentration gradient has to do with the, okay, let's put this into an analogy kind of way. Okay, let's just pretend that there's actually, there's like, there is a way to explain it, but I can't think of it right now. So let's just try to I already know what it is. Concentration gradient. Okay, so let's say there's a barrier. You have a bunch of molecules on this side. You have a bunch of molecules on this side too. Let's say there's two kinds on each side. Let's say potassium and sodium, for instance, because that's exactly what it's referring to. The sodium. Okay, so let's say there's a lot of potassium on this side, and there's like a few potassium on this side. There's more sodium on this side, and there's less sodium on this side. Okay, so concentration gradient isn't looking at the charges so much, because sodium and potassium both have positive charges. So we're ignoring the charge, and we're more looking at the amount of potassium that's on this side compared to this side. So the concentration gradient, both of the sides of this barrier want to even themselves out. They want to reach an equilibrium. They want to reach the same amount on both sides. So there's not too many on this side and not too many on this side. There's like equal sort of amounts. So the concentration gradient basically says that because there's so much potassium on this side, they inherently want to move over to this side where there's more room for them, because there aren't that many of them. So that's the concentration gradient. Because there's so many here, they're like, it's like, oh, there's an analogy. It's like when you go to a club or a bar or a very crowded area, a concert, and like there's a bunch of people on this side, but like no one really likes being crowded. Or if you're the kind of person that doesn't really like being in crowded spaces, you're gonna talk to your friend and be like, hey, why don't we go over there? There's like not a lot of people there. Like, let's go there. It's less crowded. Okay, that is concentration gradient. That was a horrible analogy. Okay. Okay, now we're gonna talk about the electrical gradient. So electrical gradient is exactly that, electrical.
is taking a look at the charges. So when it comes to charges, if there's a negative charge and a negative charge, think of two magnets. They have a positive and a negative side. If you try to put the negative and the negative charge like against each other, they will repel each other. Like they don't want to touch each other, right? And then if you flip it and put the positive side, same thing. Positive and positive, they repel each other. They don't even want to touch each other. But when you put a positive and negative, they like each other. So for the electrical gradient, okay, let's put some negative stuff in here. Or no, actually let's keep them both positive. So same analogy where there's a lot of potassium on this side, very few on this side, and then there's a few sodium and a lot of sodium over here. Okay, so they both have positive charges, but the concentration and electrical gradient kind of work together. So there's a lot of potassium. We're only going to focus on potassium. There's a lot of potassium here. And because it's so positive, there's no room for them, right? They're all just like bouncing off each other. And so because there's more room on this side for them, the electrical gradient makes them want to flow this way to reach equilibrium again. But yeah. And this explains it in 2 sentences. Okay. So sodium ions will flow from high concentrations to low concentrations by simple diffusion. Yes. To reach equilibrium. Yes. And then in terms of electrical gradient, the sodium ions will flow away from the net positive charge of that area toward a net negative area because opposites attract. Simple answer. I'm gonna make you yellow. I'm surprised you stayed for everything I just said. Okay. What are the properties of the concentration gradient? Properties. Make sure it sounds good. What are the properties of the concentration gradient? Properties. The main properties. Property. Properties of concentration gradients. That is so many splits. This one has a lot too. So many split ones. Sorry. Properties. Properties. So I was watching this YouTube video on hair care, and one of the girls, she talked about taking time to cut off her split ends, because I'm trying to grow my hair like super long, but it takes time. And my hair grows really slowly. It's supposed to be a study video, oh my god. Okay. I don't know. I guess. It's literally what the other one said. Yes. Repeated exposure. What role does the membrane play in the concentration gradient and the electrical gradient? What role does the membrane play? Oh, okay. I think this has to do with the potassium and sodium. So at rest, the membrane, it has channels. Okay, it has potassium channels, it has sodium channels, and then it has the sodium potassium pump. So at rest, the membrane is the sodium channels are closed, so they don't let any sodium in. But the sodium potassium pump releases, what's it called? I think it's 2 sodium. It releases 2 sodium and brings in 3 potassium. No, that doesn't sound right. It has to be the opposite. It releases 3 sodium, pulls in 2 potassium. That sounds better. I might be wrong. Okay, so because there's more potassium inside, potassium is constantly trying to get out. Right, but because there's so few sodium inside, in fact there's like a whole ton of sodium outside, sodium is trying to get in. So that's a thing. So yeah. I guess. That's a better question. When you have charges and motions, then you generate a current, and you can do something with it. Manipulate membrane potential. Resistance creates voltage, so they constantly have power. Okay, yeah, I did not know that. Did I make it red? Oh right, so I have studied this for today. It's definitely at an okay. Yay! Now we're going to move on to action potential. I really should study these earlier. I should start with this when my brain is like fresh. Right now I'm just tired. Setting up the potassium gradient. It's 9. Oh no, it's not. I'm so tired. I can do this. 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 Okay. I'm really tired. I have 15 minutes left of the rest of this hour, so I'm gonna stay on for 15 more minutes, but I'm dying. Oh, I should talk to the camera. I'm gonna stay on for like 15 more minutes, but I'm like literally dying. So I'm gonna end earlier than usual. tired. So I'm gonna give it another 15 minutes and then I'm out of here. That's it. That's all I can give you the rest of the night. Okay. I did it. Resting potential of neurons. Resting potential. Okay, setting up the K gradient. Potassium gradient. Fascinating. What? What are the primary ions involved in the resting potential of neurons? I've literally been talking about this the entire time I was talking about that. Primary ions involved in the resting potential of neurons are potassium and sodium. Then we have some chlorine and we got some proteins. Yeah. Oh. So you want me to describe them? I said that all before. Okay. I'm gonna make this yellow. Okay. What properties determine which ions are inside and outside of the membrane and why? Okay. Okay, we talked about voltage gated. Wait, did we start talking about voltage gated stuff yet? Is that later? Okay, not yet. That's till later. Okay, so we won't talk about that yet. What properties determine which ions are inside and outside of the membrane and why? Sodium potassium pump, for sure. Potassium inside, sodium outside. There's just a lot more sodium outside than everything. Properties, the channels, but we don't really talk about the channels yet. The concentration gradient and the electrical gradient. Those definitely determine what's inside and what's outside of the membrane. Why? Because sodium potassium pump tends to keep potassium ions in semi-equilibrium between the inside and the outside. Potassium is constantly trying to get out because there's just such a high concentration of them inside and there aren't very many of them outside. And then sodium is constantly trying to get in too, but it can't because that channel is closed. But there's sodium inside as well, there's just not as much as inside. And so you have the electrical gradient pushing out potassium because it's positive and there's too much positive inside. And yeah, that's all I can really think of. So yeah, I said all of that. Electrical gradient, concentration gradient, sodium channels, and sodium potassium pump. Yeah, for the electrical inside. Oh, I think I need to make sure that I differentiate that. Potassium is trying to get out by the concentration gradient. True. Potassium and sodium are both pulled inside by the electrical gradient because there's a lot of negative stuff inside, mostly proteins inside. So everything's trying to get pulled inside by the electrical gradient. But sodium channels are closed. The K inside and outside cells almost reaches balance. Yep, I talked about all of that. I'm gonna keep this yellow. Wait. And I'm gonna make this okay. What role do the electrical and concentration gradients play in the resting potential? Can I just talk about that though? That's a better question. What role does the electrical gradient play in potassium flow in the cell? Potassium's presence. Okay. I'm gonna put this as a red because I didn't even get to answer it. How does the sodium potassium pump function? I kind of already forgot. I think it pumps out 3 and pumps in 2. I think so. Of sodium potassium respectively. Yeah. Pumps out 3, pumps in 2. Ha! I got it right. Yeah. I'm gonna give myself a yellow. What happens when the action potential takes place? Okay, when the action potential takes place, the sodium channels blow wide open. And sodium just like inside. And that basically depolarizes the cell because it becomes so positive inside that it changes the polarization of the membrane, depolarizes it, which means increasing the charge closer to 0, and at some point that hits a threshold enough that it triggers the action potential. Yeah, that's literally it. Yeah. Okay. Very good, very good. Oh, it's 9. Am I off the hook? What? I still have 7 minutes to go? Oh. Okay, I can do this. So by 9:10. Okay. I got this. Okay. Balancing the concentration of electrical gradients on potassium. How does the membrane reach a 0 net force? Okay, that has to do with potassium in equilibrium, both inside and outside. I believe some of these questions are too vague. Okay, am I at least right? Oh, no, it has nothing to do with K. The value of the resting potential is such that the electrical gradient is equal and opposite to the concentration gradient at rest, 0 net force. Basically, that just means that there's no movement electrically and there's no movement concentration-wise. 0 net force, meaning there is no force. Sure. I did not know that, so I'm going to give myself a red. How is the concentration gradient determined? See, concentration gradient is just push and pull due to the amount of something inside or outside. Electrical gradient has to do with charges. It's the same question that was asked somewhere else. Charges has to do with charges. Similar charges repel, opposites attract. I'm assuming those are the answer. I think it's asking in terms of that. Okay. I'm gonna make those both red because although I said the right answer, it wasn't about the right idea. Okay. properties of the membrane. What happens when the membrane depolarizes? So I already said this. When the membrane depolarizes, the negative charge gets closer to zero, enough to reach a certain threshold to trigger an action potential, which excites the neuron. Yep, got that correct. Yellow. What happens when the membrane is hyperpolarized? When the membrane is hyperpolarized, it's attempting to reach polarization again. So in order to hyperpolarize, the process is that after the action potential ends, the sodium channels close. They lock down and don't let any more sodium in. Whatever sodium is already inside, right, stays in, and eventually that's cycled out through the sodium potassium pump, right? But what doesn't close is other channels that let do both the concentration and electrical gradients, because there's a lot of positive outside, all the negative goes back in. That's chlorine and proteins go back in, and at the same time the potassium channels also open, and the potassium channels basically kick out all the potassium because there's a bunch of sodium inside, and that sodium can't go anywhere, so there's just a bunch of positive charge inside. So then the potassium is like, oh, let me get the fuck out of here. So then negative charges rush in, and then eventually it reaches the negative 65 and then some. So that's hyperpolarization. Make the membrane potential more negative. Yeah, exactly. Make that yellow. How does the axon work as a conductor? I remember this. How does the axon work as a conductor? Well, the axon, there's a bunch of charges in motion, which increases all sorts of velocity and charges, and conduction occurs. That's my best answer. So I basically said all of this, just not really well. Yeah. As current travels along the axon, it's movement of charges. So it has a certain voltage, but as it goes on, that voltage eventually dies away and gets smaller. Okay. I'm gonna make this yellow. What happens if the permeability to sodium is increased? It's toxic for the axon. I'm gonna study that. Is it time? I still have a minute. I'm so ready to stop studying. I'm so tired. Action potential. I have 1 minute. I should just talk to y'all. I'm gonna just talk. Oh, I'm so tired. Today's been a long day. Mostly because it's been self-imposed torture. I'm studying because I have to. Because I actually only had 1 class today, but still. And then tomorrow I have a bunch of classes. And then I'm gonna study again. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for watching my streams and studying with me, even if it's after the fact. I've posted my schedule both on YouTube and Twitch. If you can't make it during the time, that's totally okay. But I love talking to people, so send me a message or comment, or just talk to me during the stream. And I know I don't reply right away because sometimes I'm in the zone. But when I take my breaks, I'd like to talk to people. So yeah. You can pick my brain. Um. Anyway, that's it. I'm done for the night. I'm so tired. My brain literally is in so much pain. I'm gonna go and watch some Sailor Moon, relax, and knock out. Yeah. All right. Bye.